Saint Gregory by Charles Boehler. Part 1. Abbey of the Holy Ghost. Chapter 3. Flora and Fauna of the American Frontier. September 19th, 1859. The morning bell tolled in the darkness, its deep bong ringing through the forest. Ambrose wandered in soft dreams. Sunlit squares and the flicker of gold and red through glass like dappled forests on cathedral stone. He startled awake, bewildered and confused, then rubbed the sleep from his eyes and felt the rough-cut boards beneath his feet. He was no longer in Heidelberg. Memory of the days and weeks before flooded back, and his heart sank as he thought of the coming day. Lauds came early. Priests in green chasuble stood at the altar for Mass, while brothers in brown habits gathered in the nave. Their voices rose in hymn, filling the wooden chapel as Father Anselm led the canticle of Zechariah. Benedictus Dominus visavit et fecit, redemptionum plebis suae. Ambrose's thoughts were elsewhere. He saw images of the miller's boy, the memories of the night before fresh in his mind, and his voice faltered, half-hearted. With so many unwelcome eyes upon him, the church felt like a prison, and he wished to be away. He blushed, embarrassed that others might guess his mind. When Mass finally ended, he breathed a sigh of relief to step back into the dim morning light and feel the chilly air upon his face. Sepp would be waiting at Pigeon Lake. He should hurry. The southern road left the town, wandering lazily along the eastern shore of the lake, and the morning sun sparkled, bright and cheery as it danced on the waves. Sepp gazed across the water, tipping his frayed hat as Ambrose approached. "It's a fine morning to view the Lord's splendor, sir." He handed him a cup of tea. "I've not much fare, but at least it's fresh." A skillet sizzled with blood sausage, gamey and oily and black at the edges, and Ambrose's stomach turned. Sepp was poor, and Ambrose couldn't refuse the man's hospitality. He accepted the plate with a wan smile. "Hot balt and bry on hard toast is fit for the Lord himself," Sepp said, smiling a toothless grin. Or, at least Father Valentine. "Did you come with the first boats, Joseph?" said Ambrose, making small talk. "Or did you find your way here later?" "Oh, don't bother with Joseph. Call me Sepp. I came with the first, sir. Sailed out from Strasbourg, then Le Havre. I've been with Father Valentine for years, and I think I would follow him anywhere. He's the only living saint I know." Ambrose frowned uncomfortably at Sepp's devotion. "I know I'm not supposed to say such things," he continued, "but I'm true in my conviction. I've seen too many causes, too many fellows dead in the mud. At the end of the day, a man needs to find something to place his faith in." He paused as Ambrose looked at him in confusion. "It was the Battle of Leipzig," he continued. "That's where I got this limp. You know they gathered up those boys' bones for fertilizer? Shipped them to Scotland, I heard." He looked away, his old derby cap to his heart, and the look in his eye was one of given to wandering in a painful past. 50,000 sturdy souls on those trampled plains and knolls, who met the dawn hopefully, and were looted their shares in quarrel not theirs, dropped in agony. He heaved a sigh. "That's when I heard of Father Valentine, a man who could heal the soul. I found him in the middle of nowhere, in the Black Forest. That's where I found my Gertie, too, and she and I and Poldy make 3. "I didn't know you read English poetry," Ambrose said, smiling in surprise. "Education is a rare find amongst men." Well, it's a habit I picked up to pass the time when so long away from home, when I was a far younger man than now. We're not supposed to read such things that don't glorify the Lord, so I keep it to myself. Sepp grew self-conscious and stared at his feet, dark eyes reluctant to meet Ambrose's gaze. Sparse gray hair blew in the brisk wind as he idly knocked at clumps of mud with his boot. Ambrose studied him. An old man, wiry and thin in pauper's clothes, standing in the mud of a logging trail. Dark shadow extended in the underbrush on either side, but in the small clearing of the trail where they stood, the light shimmered brightly on his balding head. In that moment he seemed like a gnome from an old fairy tale, and Ambrose half expected him to disappear inside a log, or beneath a stump, and leave him alone in the forest. "Thank you for trusting me, Sepp," Ambrose said. "But tell me, why is it you'll speak so openly to me, when no one else will?" "Oh, the town," he said. "They are only being cautious. They're used to pillory, you know." He opened his mouth to say more, but clearly thought better of it, and grew quiet once again. "Lishka," Ambrose said, hoping to keep him talking. "That name is from the east, isn't it?" "Yeah, my father hailed from Bohemia." "Bohemia to Leipzig to Freiburg to the Americas," Ambrose said. "That's quite the journey." "Yeah, and finally to the scene of a death," he said. "Speaking of, let's have a look around. It's not good to tarry in such places." He walked ahead suddenly, as if uncomfortable. It seemed he had already said more than he was willing to share. They searched the ground. The road led south, ending in a trail where the logging stopped and the trees grew thick. Warblers and wrens twittered above, flitting about in the morning sun as bees buzzed lazily in the warm air. As they walked, the trail grew soft and water squished from the black earth around their feet. Bizarre plants Ambrose had never seen dotted the ground. The fuzzy fronds of exotic ferns mixed with fluttering oblate leaves. "There," Sepp pointed to where the body had been found. A pair of footprints, Augustine's undoubtedly, came from the path along the lake, but stopped suddenly in the middle of the trail. The ground was torn and impossible to read. Sepp and Poldy's tracks mixed with those of the oxen in the furrows of the cart, confusing the scene, and all about red blood mixed in pools with muddy water. Puzzling tracks appeared and circled the site, but none led to or from, and they were so badly disturbed it was impossible to say what had caused them. Ambrose circled, looking here and there, but could make no sense of what he saw. No tracks led to or from. No grasses were trampled leading into the forest. It was only the mucky, muddy ground that lay torn before him. "I'm no hunter. I wouldn't know how to read these signs, even if they were clear," Ambrose said. "Are they man or beast? I cannot tell. They are spaced like a man's, but too narrow. If only they weren't so trampled." He looked to Sepp, but the man stared into the distance. "What could they be?" he said again. But Sepp remained silent. Whatever suspicions he had hinted at the night before, he now wouldn't say. This old man is no help at all, Ambrose thought. "Well, I appreciate the good doctor informing me of events," Ambrose said finally, "but I don't know what more I can do." Shaking his head, he turned to leave when suddenly a shimmer in the weedy brush caught his eye. It was long and black, glistening iridescent purples and blues, and he reached down to pick it up. It was a feather, freshly fallen and shiny, but as long as his arm and the quill as big as his thumb. "What monstrous rooks are in this wild land?" he said. "Is this some carrion crow come to feed on the body? What do you make of this, Joseph?" The man pulled a flask from his pocket and held it to his ear, listening as he shook it. "Carrion feathers are bad luck. At least that's what they say in the old country. You should leave it where it lay. But," he winked and took a swallow, "they are the Lord's sign for a little nip. I think we've looked as much as we can. Maybe we should be heading on. It's not good to linger." A hull shook the mill. Heavy sacks of grain crashed and spilled on the floor as Otto's hulking form heaved and panted. Lines of rage and sorrow crossed his broad face as his thick hands tossed and battered about anything they could find. Lucas, the mill hand, fled through the back as ropes and hooks and shovels smashed against the walls, gouging the rough-cut wood and chipping the grinding stone. "Let me see him! Let me see my son!" Otto cried, spittle and snot hanging from his beard. "I'll have to dress the body," Albrecht pleaded. "It's not right to be seen." The doctor's smock was smeared a faint reddish brown. Otto fought to look away, but his eyes lingered at the sight of old blood. His son's blood. He grew dizzy and collapsed in a chair, his head heavy in his hands. That boy. I told him to not wander the woods at night. How many times did I tell him, following the doe eyes of a girl? I warned him the flesh would lead him astray, but a father's words are useless against the passions of youth. He turned to the wall in silence, tears on his ashen face. Dust settled on his wet cheeks and in his black beard, and he held his head as he moaned. In the shock of the moment, his eyes fell on things seldom noticed. Dust motes dancing in the rays of the sun, the many whorls of nuts and grain of timber. "Augusta and I put up those beams and trusses not but 5 summers past," he said. "It helped to take our mind off things, but a child will never forget. He was by Elsa's side when she died on the boat here, and we laid her to rest in that damn abysmal sea. Now," he waved his arm, "what use is all this? Father Valentine will return soon," Albrecht said, fidgeting. "Then we will have a fitting service." "I'll have no fuss there," Otto roared, his eyes red with wrath. "That damn cobbler and his whore daughter, I told him to keep her away. If that Jezebel hadn't lured my Augustin out, he'd still be here." "Now, you can't blame the girl for the acts of some night creature," Albrecht opened his hands, pleading. "She'll blame herself enough. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." But Otto's face grew hard, and he dried his eyes with a dirty handkerchief. "Keep your morals to yourself, Doctor. You're not my priest." He stood up and grabbed his staff and axe. "What manner of creature did this? Was it a man or some beast?" The doctor sighed. "I cannot say. I've never seen such a wound. Show me the body." "It's not right to see, not yet." The miller glared, his eyes fierce, and the doctor stepped back. "Show me," he said. If you're a fan of Midwest Gothic and would like to be notified about the next chapter and any upcoming stories, please click like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for listening.